Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen. It is such a pleasure to be with you again on this Sunday evening. Having the studio with me, my main man, the Rob Father. Rob, what's good?
What's going on, man?
Man, it has been a good day. We've gotten a little bit of snow, but today I think the powers that be have given us a bit of a reprieve. It is a nice evening.
It's Michigan now. Come on.
It is Michigan, but come on, it's been brutal. The temperatures today is actually a balmy winter evening, and I'm kind of glad to be here with you guys on this evening because it didn't take a whole lot to get out the house. But for those of you who are coming in a social media stream, Rob, they're saying, "What's up, fellas?" We certainly want to say hello to everyone that's out there. We thank you guys for continually tuning in and making Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen your number one show to get your community, world, impact, information and what's happening around town.
Right here on KISS 107.1.
There you go. Rob, you did that so perfectly. You came in right on time. I want you guys to share. Please like, tag, and share this information. For those of you listening, whether you're listening to on Straight Talk on Facebook, I think that we also are out there on Instagram. We at least put snippets on Instagram. But I also want you guys to get to the habit of checking us out on YouTube. Go to YouTube and just kind of search my name, Kareem Bowen. There you'll find every single time we go live on here, you'll be able to get all that information. Share there, register there. Subscribe, I think, is a proper term that we should use. Subscribe there so that you get notifications whenever we go live.
On our Odyssey
app. And Odyssey app. Okay, Rob continually reminds me that there is an Odyssey app that we have to continually engage. It's a great way for you to get the same conversation. Instead of on the radio, you get it in podcast form.
Well, actually, it's live form.
Live form as well. Okay, well, see, I'm learning something new every day, Rob. You didn't tell me that, man.
Yes, I did.
Okay. I wasn't paying attention. But we got a lot to talk about today. We have a lot that I want to get through on today. And I want to make sure that you guys are understanding. We're going to talk about this ARPA situation. I'm not sure exactly how much or whatever has been happening with when I am not here. But I've had some interesting things that have taken place.
This is sweet because you're rolling on piggyback of George Harper's show.
I figured that,
yes.
But this is from Kareem's perspective, so it's a little bit different. It's a little different. It's a little different because I want to chronicle this situation from when we first started engaging about that, Rob, when it first came to light out the gate. And on this past week, I've had an opportunity to meet and to ask questions directly of Guidehouse, which are the ones that are actually running or overseeing what's taking place. I tried to get them on the show, Rob, but they said that they think that it's contractually they cannot do it.
For our listeners, if they're interested, they can look up Guidehouse, as in guidepost, guidehouse.com. I went there today to see, their figures are into all kinds of things.
Most definitely. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole.
No, but I'm just saying,
absolutely.
Since you can't talk about it or not able to talk as much as you would like to, our listeners can do so on their own. Step off Facebook just a second. Log in guidehouse.com, and you'll see that they're into the government and a whole bunch of stuff there that they do.
As Rob said, silence is golden, right? So I'm going to move on. But I'll tell you this, Rob, the conversation that I was able to have, I think it was David who I spoke with, was actually refreshing. Because he has a responsibility for reporting to the city, and what he does is, government kind of responsibility that are attached. I felt like I was actually getting answers that I could bank on, and I want to make sure, because what I did realize is I realized that there were some nuances that were being shared or not shared or communicated, not necessarily spoken. That are true. But what I will say off the top of that conversation, before we even get to it, that there is one voice that has remained consistent about what that process was going to be. from the very beginning. And I told you this. I'm going to tell you the truth all the time. People may not always like what I have to say. And I like all of the individuals that are involved. I don't have any personal issues with individuals that are involved. But hey, right is right. But Mayor Brenda Moore, I told you from the very beginning, her statement of how things would be as it related to these dollars coming forward as it relates to programming, she has been consistent. That has been really the only consistent voice that I have heard for the past 2.5 years regarding those dollars. And I'll explain to you what that means and why that is. But we got a lot to cover before we get in there. So y'all populate this conversation. Make sure you like, tag, and share this conversation. We're going to get to it. I got to start off by doing a spotlight in Black history. This is Marion Croak. Most people don't know who she is, but you use her technology all the time. Rob, are you familiar with voice over IP, VoIP?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yes.
So you're a bit in the game. I would say probably back in 2000, when I opened my first office right over behind Troutner, right there, 2205 Troutner Avenue, Troutner Drive or what it was. And we were trying to figure out what phone system to get. And someone suggested to me to get VoIP. And I was like, what's VoIP? And this is 23 years ago. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is 23 years ago. So it's voice over IP. And I think the leader in that technology that was pushing for it was a company called Packet 8. And we were working. So they came in. And what I found out, voice over IP, that's what VoIP stands for, was the new way of doing things. Instead of phone lines, they were actually using computers and your internet to create these systems that we could actually have virtual lines. Everyone could have virtual line, virtual assistants, and that's where all of this stuff came in. And you don't get too soon. Let's slow down. I want to tell the people how blessed we are as people who have melanin in our skin, and we've been kissed by the sun. But anyways, Marion Croak, she was born in 1955. She's an engineer and an inventor. She's worked on advancing VoIP protocols, technology converting voice data into digital signals that can easily be transmitted over the internet rather than using traditional phone lines. Y'all remember when you would sign in to the internet back in the AOL days? And those of you who still have AOL.com and SPSD.net, y'all upgrade your email systems, okay? Because we got new stuff going on here. But hey, I'm gonna leave that alone for right now. But her work has furthered the capabilities of audio and video conferencing, making it a practical reality to the world. In 1982, Croak began her career at Bell Labs, later called AT&T, with a position in the Human Factors Research Division, looking at how technology could be used to positively impact people's lives. Subsequently, she went on to work on the network engineering, where she contemplated the potential of digital telecommunications rather than use traditional phone lines for voice communication, along with a digital method for internet data. She and her team thought both could be done digitally with the internet. Consequently, they focused on enabling voice traffic that could be both reliable, of high quality. Today, the widespread use of VoIP, voice over internet protocol, is vital for remote work and conferencing as well as personal communications. Now, to what Rob was saying, I want to say this first of all. Her work was first used in Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. They were able to use it in 2005, raising $130,000, and again in 2010 with her earthquake in Haiti, raising over $43 million in donation. She joined Google in 2014, where she is now vice president of engineering and leads the research center for responsible AI, automated intelligence, and human-centered technology. She also has led the team bringing broadband to developing countries in Asia and Africa. Now,
I think AI is artificial.
Artificial, I'm sorry. What did I say? Automated?
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me. Artificial intelligence. Thank you very much for correction. VoIP. Have you ever used Zoom? As he was talking, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all of these virtual platforms. Well, if you send a text to donate, we know that even churches are doing text donations through Givelify and Cash App and all of these other ways. Her technology, the technology by Marion Croak, was the essential platform that was necessary to make this integration between communication and video conferencing and sharing information possible. So she is our spotlight in Black history. She was inducted and she has over 200 patents to her name. So this woman is paid, Rob. She is paid in
some of her work because when I started working for a phone company, I came in with digital subscriber line, what people know as DSL.
Yes.
And we were migrating over to broadband. But we can thank also with her use and education about fiber optics, because without fiber optics, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Absolutely. So she is our spotlight. She is an inventor. She is a creator. She is a technology, guru. She understands this stuff. And I say that, and I thought it was important to share that because we talk a lot about the tech space and the underrepresentation of Black folks in these spaces. But we have Black people that are doing great things in the world of technology. So shout out to our own spotlight in Black history, engineer, Marion Croak. I was going to say engineer, inventor. She's both of those. Marion Croak. All right. So let's get to what's on my mind. Are y'all ready? All right, Rob. So I've been in meetings all this weekend, as a matter of fact. And I had the opportunity to go to coffee hours with Representative O'Neill, the 95th District State Rep. He used to be 95, now I think it's 94 with the redistricting. Excuse me. He did what was called coffee hours at Houghton Jones Neighborhood Association. I thought it was a phenomenal opportunity. Representative O'Neill, I'll give you a shout out. What's that?
He's always phenomenal.
I've always liked him. Right here on this show, when I first found out that he was going to run, I gave full-throated support, not knowing who else was out there, but it did make a difference because I knew who he was a person. But this was great because the Houghton Jones Community Neighborhood Association, which is a very strong association, did a wonderful job of bringing him in and sitting with him and having a very collaborative conversation. Topics range from money for housing, the criminal justice system, corrections, land bank, property use, everything that you could talk about. He was very open and honest. And one of the things that he said, and I want to make sure that we get this, he says that we come up with ideas often and we say that, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this. And he's like, okay, well, give me a plan. We never take to the other extra step. We have ideas, we come up with thoughts, but we need to have a business plan executed. And so he says that if you are working in any of these areas, and I want to just say once again, and one of the key places was housing, food, all of these things, he said that, hey, if you give him the plan, you come up with the plan, there's money that is available, and he as your representative will advocate on the floor, because I believe he's a part of the appropriations committee. So he can get those dollars, and we've seen dollars coming into our community. So shout out Representative O'Neill on that. Now, one of the things that came up, and this is me being, I think it was an interesting question, and especially how it was posed. Brace yourself. Rob could tell the lead in was going there. It's going there. One of the crazy things that happened in this meeting, this particular association meeting, is that one of the I'm not going to tell you who it was, but someone asked the question, just out of the blue, how do we get rid of our city manager? And so, and I want to give Representative O'Neill, I want to give you a shout out on how you handled that question. Because you handled it as a well-seasoned politician.
Well, he used to be a councilman.
Absolutely. So he understands the process. He kind of explained, how our city works, that we don't necessarily have what you would call a strong mayor, that our city actually is run by the city manager. The mayor has authority and she has perceived power that we have to understand. And if people perceive that you have power, then you have power. Perception is reality, but she does have the ability and relationships. She has relationships, being the first African American woman who was the president of the Michigan Municipal League. Did I get it correct? All right. Well, anyway, she was over all of the municipalities that existed in Michigan. But anyways, so they asked the question, and this is the thing that I want to say, because I'm going to be very honest with you. I honestly, as of now, I really kind of like Tim Morales. I do. I don't think he's a bad person. There, everyone has improvements on areas where they could be a bit more helpful. Okay. But in the end, he answers the phone. You call, set up a meeting. He sets up the meeting. The information that I've received, and this is talking my personal conversations with him. Everything that he's ever told me that he was going to do, he fulfilled those obligations. So when I say that I don't have any problem with him, that's where I'm coming from. Now, are there some things that we wish that we could do a little different? My thing is that we've got to begin to advocate for those things. Now, one thing that I did say to Tim, and if he were in front of my face, he would tell you that I'm telling you the absolute truth. I said, Tim, I'm going to tell you like this. You are the person who runs our city. Yet, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it appears as though you are hiding behind council members and the mayor and other individuals, and you need to really be able to engage with our community. And I gave him some suggestions on some things, having some community open forums where you can sit and talk with the city manager. Actually bring the city manager, the mayor, and everyone, and you can have these conversations so people can know who are the people that are involved in the process, in the administrative aspect of our community. Now, one of the issues that I have with our administration, we just hired somebody new. I don't remember. There's a job post in Cassidy. I don't have any issue with you. I've met you before. Seem to be nice. I don't know how you got your job. I don't know how you came from one entity to a next entity. I don't know if it was posted or not. Those are issues. Those are real issues that we have to talk about in our community because we have to hold them accountable for what takes place. Now, that being said, I think that if you guys have interest in meeting your city manager, he has been very open about having those conversations. Get out there and talk with him. Nobody should have the ability to protect him or to corral him from the citizens. And oftentimes that's what it seems like. Now, I'm going to tell you, I walked right up to him one day when the city was having a meeting. I think it was when they were having their beginning of the year training or whatever, when ARPA first started. And every single question that I asked, he answered. He gave me his card. We then communicated. He says, hey, Kareem, why don't you connect? He gave me a cell phone, called me on the weekend because he wanted to make sure that my answers were given. The answers were given that I had requested. So as it relates to that, as it relates to the things that I've been had relationship, I like the dude. So if you got issues, maybe part of the issue is you need to sit down, schedule some time with him to talk. I know the pastors, Saginaw African American pastors, will be meeting with him this week. We'll see if that changes or not. But as of now, that's where I'm at, Rob.
No, that's good because I agree. Perception, you can have a wrong idea about somebody. If you have a question about them, go talk to them.
Hey, that's what's up.
From horse's mouth, so to speak.
Absolutely. And don't let other people get to tarnish your reputation or tarnish the image that you have of people before meeting and making your decision based upon your interaction with people. And that happens often. A narrative will be placed and we'll run with that narrative. Now, it is what it is. I'm going to go move on to the next thing. I want to talk about CAP, Community Alliance for the People. In other ways, Jeff Bulls and Naisha Latoy, they have been doing the work. They had their conversation on housing part 2. Now, what I do want to look, because I didn't get a chance to be there because I was at another meeting as well, and my students out of SVSU had GLEAX going on, which is track, right? But there was a new, how shall I say it, Rob? I try to be PC, but sometimes I just got to say it the way I say it. There was a new, more melanin-filled look or appearance of the organization. Did you get what I say, Rob?
Yes,
okay. All right. So the energy was a bit different in this conversation than it has been in times past. I don't have no issues with nobody. I love everybody under God's rainbow. But community action for the people, I believe that in this last session, I could not be there in person. I believe you became more powerful. I think you became more relevant. I think that the community is going to view you differently. I want to make sure that I say that. So if you are interested in getting involved, and let me tell you why CAP is necessary. I don't agree with everything. I think it's Pastor Coleman. He's one of the founding members. Jeff Bulls, who is a friend. He's been to the show a number of times. Naisha Latoy, the most creative, artistic woman that I've ever met in my life. They have an amazing team of individuals that they're working with. Let me tell you why I believe that they're relevant. Because anytime you have anything happening in your community, you always want there to be agitators to the process. And the reason, and agitators, they get on people's nerves. Usually people, They keep you alert, they keep you informed, and they bring something, not compromise, because I hate to compromise. I think compromise should be taken out of our vocabulary. Oftentimes we think that when there's differing opinions that the best way to handle those things is by compromise. I don't think so. I think that the best way to handle any situation where we see things differently is through the process of collaboration. And so what they have done is created a space in which they are building networks within the community to make sure that the powers that be understand that this is a collaborative effort that we're doing as we decide to rebuild our community. So CAP, Community Alliance for the People, I want you to continue to do what you do. Those who are listening, understand that when you're hearing CAP, you're not talking about government. You're talking about everyday, regular Joe Schmoes that are making great things happen. Jeff Bulls, I think that you're one of the greatest free thinkers. I may not always agree with everything that you think, but at least there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it makes sense. So continue to do the work that you all do as you continually are agitators in our community, because collaborative opportunities come out of that work you're doing. All right, now China appears to be prepared. Rob, you know I was thinking about you, right? China appears to be prepared to join Russia in this war on Ukraine by providing lethal aid to Russia. They've already been sending, not lethal aid, but resources, things to help them support necessary aid. Now they're conditioning themselves and the world for a possibility of them entering by sending in lethal aid. Rob, what's going down? Are we on the precipice of World War?
No, because
okay.
China has its hands full with Taiwan. They're worried about us supporting Taiwan. And if anything's going to break off with anything, it'll be that first. But I think if we get ahead of the game with helping Ukraine with winning this war against Russia, China's going to back off. They're watching very carefully. See, that's what they do. They watch very carefully. If they're following the Tao ideal, they're just watching carefully, and they're sneaking as they want to, but they won't get directly involved. And I think Taiwan is more there.
Let me tell you why I'm a bit more challenged with what you're saying, and why I may differ just a little bit. Because recently, and when I say recently, I mean within the last 48 to 72 hours, there's been a situation with the balloons flying over the U.S. and other foreign soils. But now the conversation, and crazy number 45 was telling y'all this a long time ago. They are now saying that COVID is more, they're leaning more likely that instead of it being something from an animal, that it was actually something that escaped from a lab that made its way around the world. And China was slow to let the world know that this, what would probably be considered, since it's in a lab, that this bioagent had escaped their lab. Now, I told you, crazy.
That's the first thing I heard. I heard that first.
Well, we did hear, but that was because the president at the time was number 45, and he called it the China flu, right. Kung flu. But now we're back at the same thing. Let me tell you why this is crazy. One, because China is showing what I consider a more aggressive stance by the balloons, by the conversation of sending weapons to on behalf of Russia. And now if COVID becomes a biological
weapon,
I didn't want to use the term. I was going to say
military, man, so I don't think it's NBC.
Biological weapon. I mean, if it becomes a something that was slipped out of a laboratory and made its way to the United States, where 1 million Americans have died. Depending on how you look at that, Rob, that can be seen as very aggressive. And so I'm just throwing it out there. Well, I think that we need to understand what's going on. And Bill, I'm going to get to your point. I'm going to put it on the screen so that people can listen to it. Bill Ostash is in our live stream, and so he's making some comments. I'm going to share with for those of you who are not in the social media stream, so that you know what he's saying, because I believe that everyone should have their point. And I'm just going to tell you the truth based upon what it is, and you just kind of discern where we are from there. He's been a straightforward straight shooter kind of guy. So I love when he gets involved with the conversation. But anyways, I wanted to make that up. Also, your number 45, he becomes dangerous. If this is seen as something that China let out and it came to the United States to harm Americans, that means that conversation or the narrative that he was painted now comes into conversation while he's getting ready to run for president again. I saw him also make a visit to Palestine, Ohio, where our president has not gone. I can tell you what the conversation was probably like there. He doesn't care about you. I do, because he won't stand up to big interests. So I think that we have to be very careful what's going on with China and also what's happening with this new presidential election, because y'all go be back at number 45 for number 47 if you don't watch what's going on. All right, Bill Ostash, sorry, going back to what you were talking about. You know me, I am out and about a lot of meetings, and even to listen. I would love to have the manager and council have a town hall chat. This is what I was saying, Bill Ostash. When you talk to Tim, I said, Tim, you got to have these town halls and talk with the people. He comes off very authentic. He comes off very genuine. And if you do what you say, people will love you. So you're absolutely right. Not fight, discuss. This, I believe, is very important. Bill, once again, glad to see you back on council. Civility, it has not left the room. You are still among us. Y'all just figuring that out. Amazing. All right. So I'm going to move forward. I got a lot to talk about. Rob, I'm going to take a break right after this next one. I'm going to throw this. This is going to stir up a lot of things, but these are conversations that are being had in back rooms, and these, I want to bring it to the table.
What are you doing in the back room? You're supposed to be out front.
Well, I like to hear what's happening in the back room so I can talk about it in the front room. I was one of them kids who was in there with the adults, like, get out of here, the front room with the kids, go in the back room with the kids. So I always spend time in both rooms, Rob, okay? But the NAACP Image Awards, excuse me. I'm going to say NCAA because I've been watching basketball. Yeah. NAACP Image Awards, they honored Ben Crump, and I thought this was Benjamin Crump, attorney, civil rights attorney. He said, what I'm going to use this at some point. I can't wait to say it and drop the mic because it was powerful. He said, it's a time for us to fight for our children's future until hell freezes over, and then we must be ready to fight on the ice. Wow, powerful. He was given recognition, and I'm bringing up the NAACP for this purpose. They did some controversial stuff. All of these award shows have been shrouded in what has been controversy, but I'm going to tell you, the other one was, this is demonic. This is demonic. Rihanna, she came out, she gave up the Illuminati or the triangle sign at the beginning. I'm like, okay, everybody's in red performing, and it's all demonic, right? But
by you guys' perception, it's demonic.
By their perceptions, it ain't me.
I'm saying by their perceptions, demonic, because that was to be red and some, makeup thing about how the devil looks and all that stuff.
Well, when you look at Damar Hamlin, who came after the world was praying for him, comes with Jesus as a SpongeBob character on the back of his jacket. That ain't Christian.
But nobody knows what Jesus looks like.
But but it was the fact, and honestly, I think on his behalf, it's just because he does not know. A lot of people say that they're believers and Christians and really don't know what they're talking about. Exactly. But that's a whole thing, because I don't call myself a Christian. I call myself a believer, but that's another conversation. NAACP, Rob, don't take me on this one. Will Smith receives an award, which was controversial. To some people, it's not controversial because they think that if you say something to their woman, that their man should go up there and slap the taste out your mouth. I never understood that conversation. But violence was celebrated. Some applauded the fact that he stood up for black women. I thought he made black men, emasculated black men, but that's a whole nother conversation. He received Best Actor in a Motion Picture for Emancipation, which I refuse to watch until I feel like he has really given a real apology. I don't feel the sincerity, and I am a Will Smith fan. I loved Will Smith. He's from your hometown, West Philadelphia. He need to get over this. So what the guys was, anyways. Dwayne, let me stop.
Yeah, stop.
Then there was also, and I'm getting to the controversy that exists, and I want to know what your thoughts and opinions are, and I want you to put them in the stream. We're also going to put our number up in a second for those who can have a real, what should I say, a real clean conversation about what we're talking about. I put the number 989-921-7107. Rob, is that it? I want your thoughts and opinion on this conversation. All right, so Will Smith receives an award. And then we go on to the people that, the couple that America loves to hate. I don't know why it is, but it just seems, I guess there's some people that are supporting them, but it just seems like the black community loves not to hate the couple. But people don't like Gabrielle. I don't know why. People don't like Gabrielle. But anyways, Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle. Huh?
I love Gabrielle.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union received the President's Award for the trans daughter, Zaya. And Miss Wade was talking about the intersectionality of rights between blacks and LGBTQIA. I don't know what I knew what the Q was. The IA is new for me.
Intersection.
Okay, so see, there you go. There we go. So that was one thing. Then the next thing was Brittany Griner and her wife, Sherelle, appeared on stage, and then Queen Latifah came out with the "Ooh, ladies first, ladies first, ladies first."
Brittany Griner was the one who was held in the Russian
Absolutely, she was the one that was held in the Russian prison. Absolutely. So I want to know what your thoughts are about this, because what the conversation has been in dark circles or the back circles is that that Hollywood is trying to both make us demonic and gay all at the same time. So we're going to be some, I'm telling you. So is there an agenda that is being presented by Hollywood? Rob, the fact that we've had a few years of people that are celebrating Satan, I think that there's something there. And I do think that there is an attack. Now, this is what I will say, because I believe that people should have the right to show up fully who they are in their place of business, in their life, to do whatever. People are going to do what they want to. It's just like abortion. People are going to do it, whether you allow them to or not. Leave people alone. Mind your business, right?
Bothering you, causing any harm to you.
However, this is my thing, Rob, and I want you all to know what you guys are thinking out there before we take this break. There has been this birthing of this new term by Shepherd Bliss, who happens to be
it's not new.
Relatively new, I think, 1980s?
Yeah.
Okay. So
actually late that time, yeah.
Yeah. So this idea of toxic, did you know this is where I was going?
Yes.
Toxic masculinity. Now, this is the issue that I have with whatever that's going on, because I think people do what you do. I'm a pastor, and I'm going to tell you, I ain't putting nobody in the headlock to make them do anything. I don't believe that's the message of Christ. Christ said, look, this is what I want you to do as I do. It's a choice. You choose what you will. And that's how I am, right? But the idea that I have an issue with is this concept of toxic masculinity. And I think I want to have an understanding, because I think that it's okay. Masculinity is not a bad thing, all right? But however, I think, Rob, the way that it's being characterized in many circles means that some of the things that we considered masculine growing up, I don't have a problem with them. And just the way I let people live their lives, I don't think that we should have to be labeled or to feel bad because we are what most people consider masculine. Now, let me tell you what masculinity is not. There's a difference between femininity and masculinity. I want us to make sure that we understand that. And the problem that I have as an individual is I think that there is an agenda to make a person feel like you can just be whatever you want to be, blur the line, feel free. And if that's what they want to be, that's true. But there is still going to be a line between what is masculine and what is feminine. And I think that even women and men who are of different orientations, the LGBTQI, did I get it all?
You can just simply say
LGBTQ. Okay, all right. Community understands that because we see that in demonstration and even in their relationships.
But toxic masculinity doesn't necessarily have to be anything that's non-heterosexual or heterosexual. Toxic masculinity is men who are overly masculine, who try to enforce masculine ideals or behavior towards younger men. Like, for example, men are not supposed to cry, ideally. You might have been raised by your father, some men have been raised by their father, not to show emotion, not to show any type of feelings, whatnot. Hide your tears someplace else. Don't cry about it. Be a man about it. But a woman or another man says, man up, that's a part of toxic masculinity. Something that I didn't even use the term, but I made sure that my son is able to express his emotions accordingly.
Okay.
A lot of fathers should do that.
I think that's key. This is
I just think it's sexual.
No, but I think that they don't use toxic femininity. You don't hear that term.
But it exists.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, so my thought is, men out there, if you like to be rugged and you want to be out there and you want to be the Paul Bunyan man, I think that you need to hold on to who you are, right? Because the fact of the matter is, there are masculine men who are a part of the LGBTQ.
But you know what I said in that argument? There are various levels of masculinity. My level of masculinity may not be the same as yours, but that doesn't mean that we're any less masculine.
No, but I just want to make sure that we understand, because I think that masculinity, as we understand it, as I understand it as a young man growing up, is under attack. And I'm not fighting nobody. I'm not fighting against anybody. I'm not talking against. You live what you live. We live with that. But don't make me feel bad because you choose to do something different that's not consistent with what I do. You do you, and I'm going to do me, okay? Now, masculinity, to those who are wondering, my definition is masculinity is what makes a person feel secure. As a matter of fact, when men are masculine... No, makes people feel secure. Okay. People in general. It makes a woman feel secure. And actually, if you are a real man and you're in the room, even LGBTQI folks should feel secure, because masculinity is about being solid in who you are, understanding who you are. Masculinity pays the bills,
regardless of your gender or sexual identity.
And I mean, come on, when you look at who Niecy Nash laying up with, come on,
she's a feminine woman.
But what I'm saying, so then you understand that there is something called masculinity. That's what I'm saying. So the thing that I'm saying is, I wish we were to have a real conversation and to make sure to our young boys, especially black young men, that it's okay to be a man. Because sometimes in this world, it makes it seem like being a man and being masculine are problematic. And the thing that I want you to say is be completely who you are, just as I say to anybody else. Take all of yourself. Now, if you bashing people upside the head, that's not masculinity, that's punk moves. Right. You know, so there's a very big difference. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get into this conversation about American Rescue Plan Act, those ARPA funds. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
Great Lakes Bay Health Center saved my life about 8 years ago. My life imploded. I lost my home. I quit a job I loved to take care of my mother, and she died a few months later. Things just went from bad to worse. I actually ended up living in a homeless shelter right around the corner, Great Lakes Bay Health Centers. They took care of everything. Counseling, the mental health, dental, eye doctor, physical therapy. They have transportation, all my COVID shots, flu shots. I even got my shingles shots there. They take all major insurances. We have a sliding fee scale for people that don't have insurance. So it's based on your income. They truly care about what they do, and it's evident in everything they do. I'm Shelley Stolzmark. I'm a patient advocate. I also am a member of the board of directors for Great Lakes Bay Health Center.
Great Lakes Bay Health Centers is a federally qualified health center. Our mission is quality health care for everyone. We service 16 different counties. For more information and locations, visit glbhc.org.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 85% water, right?
85% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure concentrated cleaning ingredients. Don't pay for water, pay for clean.
Save $10 when you spend $30 on Tide and Downy. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent. Must buy at least one participating Tide or Dreft detergent item, plus at least one participating Downy and or Bounce scent booster, liquid fabric softener, or dryer sheets. Prepaid card by mail. Visit pglaundryrebate.com for terms and conditions.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Join Mark Patrick Seminars, Lose the Weight or Stop Smoking. Guaranteed only $49.99. Seminar Saturday, March 4th at the Bay Valley Resort and Conference Center in Bay City. Weight loss seminar starts at 11 a.m. Registration 10:30 a.m. Stop Smoking starts at 2 p.m. Registration 1:30 p.m.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on Kiss 107.1.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're welcome to the second half of Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen. We're going to get into a conversation that I think that many people are still confused by. Many are angered by, upset, frustrated with the process. And I want to talk to you guys about ARPA, and I want to do so in a manner. I got a couple of calls this weekend, some people asking, like, what is the big to-do about ARPA? So I want to make sure that we understand what's going on. And I'm thankful to those folks at Guidehouse who are now overseeing what happens with these funds, for them taking the time out to meet with organizations and individuals in the community. And so I had the opportunity to talk with them about what is actually going on. So we're going to get into this conversation. I want to start from the very beginning. When we first heard that these plans to give monies to municipalities and almost I think every city in the nation received these dollars. These were once in a lifetime dollars, which I would consider, because of the pandemic. And I want to make sure that I continually say that these dollars were a response. This was kind of leading into the backside of the pandemic, but the government, President Biden, through his Build Back Better plan, decided to give these dollars to communities that were most impacted by the COVID virus. And we understand that communities of color, particularly Black folk, were much more impacted by that. We saw alarm records because of pre-existing morbidities, comorbidities, and other things of that nature, diabetes, those types of things, high blood pressure, being overweight, diet, all of those things contributed. So they put into place to give these dollars to communities that were most impacted, for them to kind of build in systems to really target some of the issues. Because what COVID did is it pulled the cover off of a lot of existing situations that were not well. It showed us the disparities in our healthcare system. All of this stuff came to be all at the same time. And so when this first began, my thought was that I really wanted someone to stand up in the community, not knowing that I would be one of those voices, to really just agitate the process to make sure that we weren't dealing with, as I often call them, the usual suspects, that dollars would not come in and be targeted to specific organizations that always gets the funds, that have coffers and coffers, millions of dollars in their coffers, but really don't give out funds to the community. So that was number one thing that I wanted to say. So after having a series of meetings, Jeff Bulls and other individuals who were out there, and Coleman and Pryor and everyone that was involved in Tatum, Pastor Tatum, they were continually, the mayor decided, hey, this is what we're going to do. Now this, it came about a year later, it seems, but she put together a coalition of individuals, which I thought, I didn't like the coalition, and I have to be very transparent that I did apply for the coalition and was not accepted on the coalition because they said that I had a water bill from 8 years ago or 14 years ago when I didn't even live in the city. So anyways, it was cleared up, but I didn't get on the commission. There were other individuals that were put. I thought that the commission was heavily medical. I didn't understand why the leaders of the hospitals were on this commission. I didn't understand why Veronica Horn was on this commission. If we're talking about places where people were underrepresented, I thought that the coalition should look like the community that was being underrepresented. However, there were some folks that were on that commission. Sharice, I agree with you. It was a late response. Late response. Terms masculine and feminine are no longer gender-based. We understand that. That was part of my thing. But anyways, we appreciate that conversation. So this group met, and their purpose was to meet and to go over the 400 or so proposals that were given by all of the organizations. And one of the things that has always been my issue is if you weren't doing work during the pandemic, if you shut down and disappeared and ran for the hills, then these dollars were not for you. I've always said that from the very beginning, Rob. This wasn't about, hey, we can do this. This was if you were there and there were organizations that were, my church, we ain't the biggest church, but we were giving out hundreds of meals a day, partnering with organizations like Mission Nutrition and other organizations, feeding a community because kids are now at home and meals. And we had people coming in thankful that those meals would be. But if you were an organization or you were a church or whatever you were, and you disappeared during the pandemic, I don't think that these dollars were for you.
Right. You weren't there to help the community of people who lost their jobs, couldn't go to work, and didn't have an income.
Absolutely.
So they turned to the churches and food banks, to get help.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying, and let me clarify, I'm not saying that if you were a church, I'm saying if you were a church that closed its doors and did not open spaces so that people could utilize, kids could stretch out, program, because there was such a great need. Now, one thing that I will tell you that came up that was very impactful is that pastors were sharing how during the pandemic they were called on like never before. There were more funerals. We were burying people that we didn't even know. We saw the pain. We saw the sickness. We saw the disease. So we, in essence, were first responders. And so I want to make sure that we make that very, 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 very clear, because that's always been overlooked. We looked at police officers, but we weren't looking at people who were actually saying prayers and holding hands with folks who were sick on their sick bed. So that has always been my longstanding thought. So years have gone by, no funds are being released. There was a breakdown in the process. Even I think it was a breakdown, because if there wasn't, then at the ending or the conclusion of this organization or this group of individuals, this committee, then people should have known some real clear direction. As a matter of fact, when I saw individuals like Gary Loster fall off the planet and then Cal Talley, I said, this ain't going so well. All right. So there was a breakdown in the process. I'm going to tell you what the main issue was, the biggest killer to really building consensus and the community being excited about this. There was no real consistent messaging in the process. And I want to say this, and I said this at the beginning, the only person who talked about funds being reimbursement funds was Mayor Brenda Moore. I think at some point in time, every single council person that I spoke to or had communication with said, no, that's not the case. We can give this money to whoever. And they all kind of did not stick to the plan. They didn't come up with the game plan to stick to. And there was so much community messaging from depending on who you spoke to at any given time on what was the process. And I think Brenda Moore, our Mayor Moore, was the only person who said, these are reimbursement funds. Now, that's going to be really important when you talk about what's coming up and how these funds happen to take place. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I want us to understand this process, and I want us to understand where we are and the fact that there's still money on the table. But it all depends on how you handle what's currently at stake, okay? So now, there's a new process that has been initiated. If there was these conversations about buckets, whether the bucket was for a youth or for community gardens or whatever the situation was. So there's a new team that's put in place, and I think that there's 3 individuals that are working with the nonprofit organizations. They've decided we're going to give $11 million, whatever it was, to youth programming and organizations of that nature. So the process was they were supposed to look at everything once again, Rob, and then go through this process and determine, based upon the proposal, what were the needs, first of all, and then disseminate these funds with a process that made sense. And that process, which was the fail-safe for the process that did not take place, also fell. And so, Rob, it is confusing.
We talked about this already.
We did.
And it's supposed to have done this already.
Well, that process didn't turn out the way that it was, and so it became arbitrary. And when I use the term arbitrary, I think I'm saying that people pretty much made up numbers and gave people money. Some folks got more money than they requested. Other folks didn't get any money at all. Folks just wanted a parking lot and didn't even get a parking lot. I mean, just simple things like that. And that would begin to really just aggravate anybody who's a part of this process, because now it seems like you're trying to do this because there's an underlying thing. So this is what takes place now. So the wards have come out we have organizations like First Ward, which I am a board member on First Ward, and I want to be very clear about that. They received a portion of money, 900 some thousand. The Neighborhood House, $2.5 million. The MAC, I think, $1.5 million. Yearn program. All of these organizations, Houghton Jones, I think eventually maybe got their parking lot taken care of. I'm not sure where that yet stands. But these organizations were awarded these funds. And upon getting these awards, they then asked Guidehouse to come in and to oversee these funds. Now, this is the real problem with what's going on. And I think that this is where the community has to stay involved. And I think this explanation of what's going on is very important. $5 million of the ARPA funds were awarded to the mental health facility that's going to take place in Michigan. The belief is, and I believe that it's a real, true belief. I want you to understand that I really believe that this is true. $5 million in terms of that investment is going to bring hundreds of millions, if not even billions, to the city of Saginaw for development and redevelopment. Now, the question on that one becomes, who is this going to, which population of the community will this be developed? But that's a different conversation. So that is the push that we saw taking place for many people. And so I understood why some of these people were on this board. It then became obvious to me why Guidehouse, who works with public health and helping them a part of the community, were the chosen consultants for this program. All of those things are now on the situation. So all of these monies are given. Many of these programs had to shut down for a period of time because of COVID. Many Black community, come on, we're working on shoestring budget. We are not Big Brothers, Big Sisters, United Way, Saginaw Community Foundation. We're working on shoestring budgets to bring change in our community. So if these individuals were the most impacted, it seems like these community organizations should be the ones that are at the table saying, how can we help you with these funds? All right. So they now get these money. Organizations that have really just started getting we need community service organizations. We need community, where people go, community centers was one of the things that the entire Saginaw community said was necessary. So the NABE, is awarded $2.5 million, but they can't use these dollars for programming unless they are reimbursement dollars. So you give them $2.5 million. The only dollars that are really clean, where you can get to them, use them, and get done because they're going to write a check, are capital improvements. So if you need changes to your building, if you need a new kitchen, if you need a new roof, if you need your parking lot paved, if there's some issues with your building that need capital campaign improvements, those are the things that really the funds can be used for.
Not to initiate anything new.
Not to initiate anything new, not to keep anything that you have going on, not for capital dollars for the continual, for payment of funds or salaries or bringing staff on. None of those things are a part of what these dollars are supposed to be for, right? If you do programming, now it's not that you can't do programming, let's be very clear. But it means that in order for you to utilize the $2.5 million, you've got to spend $2.5 million first, which we know we ain't got in our community, right? Because we're working on toothpicks and tinsel to make things happen. So, but this is, and I want to say this out the gate, this is typical of federal granting processes. If you've ever received grant dollars, in most cases, this is how it operates, Rob. These are reimbursement dollars, cost reimbursement dollars. You spend the money. Those monies are then returned as you produce receipts and what you need in order to make that happen. But the problem is, my question was, and I hope you all are listening, if these are emergency dollars gives me the connotation or the understanding, Rob, that these dollars are different than regular grant dollars, that these are meant to put out fires, that these are meant to build bridges in places where there's drop-offs. And so I began to ask the question, and the number one question that was, I think everyone, where did this legislation come from? So in my conversation, as I had an opportunity to speak with Guidehouse, and they were very forthcoming, and I appreciate both, I think, as the city manager or city council, whoever put it together for them to be able to sit down with organizations. I appreciate that, because it brought so many. This is what should have happened at the very beginning of the process. As a matter of fact, before the consultants were hired, it would have been a very smart collaborative effort for the city council and whoever was responsible for this. I think the city manager to say, hey, we're looking at consultants to bring into the community. These are individuals that we're looking at. Why don't you guys be a part of the process? You know, which of these do you think best fit our city? But it is what it is. But I think having a conversation with them after the city has hired them would be important, because at the end of the day, the city members work for the community, right? Not the other way around. There you go. So I asked the question, where did this piece of legislation, is it something that came down from the federal that was pushed down to the state and then to the local municipalities? How did this happen? Because it was my understanding that municipalities had some leverage on how they handled these situations. And so speaking with Guidehouse, you know, he was like, I know this is something that was implemented by the city of Saginaw. And so what that means, Rob, is that these dollars were sent down from federal, and the piece of legislation that these dollars are now reimbursement, I don't believe, and from what was communicated to me with the conversation with Guidehouse, that was a part of the conversation. However,
local legislation?
Absolutely. And so that was something that bothered me, Rob, because I didn't think the math wasn't mathing, you know, the policies weren't politicking, you know, so I'm like, what's going on here? It didn't equal 4. And so as we began to continue to ask those questions, what we learned is because of how some, you know, CBDG, community block grant funds, however, CD, whatever the term is. I always get that confused. But anyways, y'all know what I'm talking about. Those funds, some were mismanaged, some were done wrong. People walked away from situations. They had to put in place a process to make sure that they were able to give a good accounting for the federal government, because now there's more government. And I understand, Guidehouse, I'm not mad. If I got a sign at the bottom of this saying that I want to make sure that things are done right. But my thing is this: why not share that conversation with the community from the beginning? So now people are able to position themselves mentally, emotionally, programmatically, to understand how this process is going to work. And so now that is the official story. And so no, this was not legislation that every other city has. It is legislation that our city has adopted, because funds of this nature, which I thought these were once in a lifetime funds and different because they were emergency, but they're saying because of how funds have been used before, that there was a need to do this. Now, I can take that. I may not agree with it, but if you tell me that at the onset of the situation and not do a song and dance with me, I think the community is cool. We may not like it, but at least you can tell us and we can understand your rationale. So those of you who are out there, to all the organizations that have received these funds, I certainly want to say congratulations to you. We were also told that there is possibly some legislation, and this is where I say that it's not over until the fat lady sings. Because if legislation has been changed and it doesn't go to the federal government, there's an opportunity for you organizations to have conversations, not yell, protest, go crazy. We're not doing like the tire commercial where the old woman takes the tire and throws it through the window. Civil conversations about where our organizations that are receiving these dollars are. And there can be amendments, because if you can amend it to make it one way, you can amend it to make sure that we get the dollars that are necessary. I always believe that there should be truth in accounting. I believe that there has to be a way for us to justify the dollars that are coming in and how we use those dollars. So now it's time for real conversations that make real impact so that we can move forward as a community beyond this $52 million. There's much more money on the horizon. Our city, this is a new city, a new season. This is a new day. A fresh anointing is coming away. A season of power and prosperity. It's a new season, and it's coming to Saginaw. In the words of our mayor, I want to thank you guys for continually listening in. We thank you for your time and attention. And as always, God bless you all. Grace and peace.
You've been listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS